Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Expert Speaks. As promised, in the month of April, we'll be highlighting amazing entrepreneurial women. And today we have guest expert as well as strategic leadership expert, Ms. Pamela Kellert, who is the founder of Women Leading in STEM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, as well as Math. Pamela helps female professionals within the STEM sector thrive within leadership roles. She is a seasoned strategic leadership expert and has over 16 years of experience working in strategy, business development, as well as project planning. She's also had the privilege of heading very diverse groups of team members at numerous large organizations. And she has also been all over the world: Australia, Asia, Europe, and even North America. She's managed complex engineering projects as well as profit and loss, responsibility of over 100 million, with over 100 employees reporting to her. That's even just a mouthful to say, but as a leadership coach, she supports various women in all of different backgrounds and experiences to help them get to that next level and thrive within leadership. So today we'll hear her story, and hopefully we'll inspire other women that are operating in STEM to do the same and elevate to leadership. So again, thank you so much, Ms. Pamela, for being here. It is an absolute pleasure to have you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Jane. What a wonderful introduction. I feel very honored to be here today and to talk to you and to all the viewers and listeners. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, honestly, you should. You have quite a few titles to hold, and you've done some amazing things within your lifetime. So I really just want to get into that and talk just a little bit about your background. What made you really pursue science and technology and engineering and math? What was it that said, man, I like this?
Yeah. As you say, I've done a lot of things in my life. And I think the one thing that really pushes me to try out new things, discover new things, whether it's new professional areas or new countries and cultures, is the curiosity. I'm just such an eager learner. I've always been fascinated by expanding my view, expanding my knowledge, and also meeting new people and really growing my mind by getting new influences and things that help me to expand my horizon. That's really what has been the thread throughout my whole journey. Originally, I have studied business administration, and when I started working, I actually went deep into strategic management. So I originally started working as a strategy consultant. And again, there, what I loved was diving into different sectors by project and getting to know different aspects of industries, what are some of the problems they have, and learning that logic of, I have a problem, how do I subdivide it into sub-elements, find a solution, and combine it into an overall solution. So what's interesting is that in strategy, I learned really a lot of logical thinking and systematic thinking. And that was a skill that later on I was able to transfer into engineering projects. So although I don't have an engineering background, it's really through that skill that I was able to adapt to a new environment. And again, because I'm a curious and eager learner, I then learned a lot about engineering projects, particularly in the transport industry.
I love that. And I like the fact that you said your curiosity led you to now is what your career path is, right? And even though you didn't start out in engineering, you developed into engineering. So that was really awesome as well. As a woman leader, because I know we're going to talk about your organization in just a little while, but were there any challenges going through this particular career path? Is it a more male-dominated field? I mean, there's so many misconceptions that come along with technology as well as science, and it's really labeled off as a male-dominated field. What challenges did you have throughout your journey?
Indeed, indeed. And you know what? It's still today, it is still an environment where women are the minority. So some of the challenges I think I had initially was in my earlier career was trying to fit in. I thought I had to fit in. And so I didn't necessarily stand up for my opinions or didn't stand up for my style. I was trying to fit in and blend in, to be honest, because you know when you're at the outsider, you don't always want to stand out. So initially, I actually just wanted to blend in and go with the flow, which somehow worked for me, right? But as you grow into a leader, you actually do want to stand out because you want to show what's your vision. You want to lead the way and you want to show also your team what's possible. So that's when I had to find out my own way of discovering who am I as a leader and what's my leadership style. Because, you know, at least in some of the projects, the predominant leadership style can be one that's very masculine and dominant, and that's not necessarily the style that I would identify with. And I think many women are in that phase where they don't know what's a leadership style that's congruent with them, that actually fits well with their values, their strengths, with their personality. So the challenge for women is to receive the right guidance. Yeah, because I'm sure many women have received the following advice. I have received the advice, namely to just be more assertive.
Just go after
Right?
it. Just go get it.
Just be more assertive. But, you know, that might work for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. And so the challenge for us women is we don't necessarily have people around us that can help us to find a leadership style that is congruent with ourselves. Why? Because there are so few women in this industry, particularly in senior leadership roles, that we actually don't have accessible mentors. There might be one or two that are high up, but they're also super busy. So I always say there's a lack of accessible mentors just because we are still in the minority.
Yes, that is so very true. Even now, within my current role and my position, although I work very independently, it is hard to sometimes get access to those mentors because they are so busy and they do have so much on their plate. Not that they don't want to help you, not that they don't want to grow
Exactly.
or even to pour into you. It's just that the bandwidth is just not available to them. So I can definitely understand that, which in turn causes a little bit of separation there. And I know that there are many different organizations within companies that close those gaps and things of that nature. And I know that your particular organization is an organization where young women can actually come and receive different types of methods, as well as advice, techniques, and even skills in order to really help them to maneuver into those leadership roles. Could you tell us a little bit more about STEM and how you all operate?
Yes, absolutely. So, in our organization, Women Leading in STEM, the focus is really on helping women in those sectors to grow into leadership roles. And I always say it comes down to three pillars. The first pillar is really a lot of self-awareness. Because as leaders, as I mentioned earlier, as leaders, we actually step up. We show the way, we guide people, and we lead teams through easy times and difficult times. And it's in those times that as a leader, you really need to know, what do I stand for? Yeah. So self-awareness about what are my values, what are my strengths is really important. So one of the pillars that we focus on is providing that self-awareness. And that helps to derive what's a leadership style that really is congruent with me. And that can be very individual to each person, you know. One person might be a little bit more assertive, another person might be more competitive, another person might be less of those. So every individual is very different. So what we do is we really focus on helping people find their unique strengths, their unique values, and therefore derive their unique leadership style.
Wow.
The second pillar that we focus on is then really on effective leadership, because you know, in particular in STEM positions, one transition is really hard, namely when we're working as an individual contributor, working on our own tasks, and then to transition to a leadership role where we're suddenly responsible for people. We need to give them guidance, and we're still trying to, let go of our former individual contributor role. That transition can be really hard.
Yes.
Can be really hard, particularly in STEM roles, when you're technically really good, and it's difficult to let go of working on the tools, on the technical solutions, rather than shifting the mindset and focus towards leadership, strategic thinking.
Yeah.
So effective leadership is about helping through that transition so that they can become great leaders. And the third aspect is about how to create impact. And that I like calling it also how to create visible impact. Because here's one thing, Jay, we can be the best expert in one area, but if people don't know about that, if they don't know what value we can provide, then that expertise is not helping anybody. So we can create visible impact by making others aware of the contributions we can make, the knowledge we have, the ideas that we have. And we do that through a couple of ways. One way is through networking. Just expand your network, let people know what you're working on, so they can then later on invite you to conversations and harness the knowledge and ideas that you have. And the second aspect is also a bit more about making ourselves a little bit more visible so that people know there's Jay, there's Pamela, they know about both fields. Let's invite them to this conversation. So those are the three pillars that we focus on.
I think that is so valuable, especially when we talk about that self-awareness. Finding someone that is like you to support you. That's huge. Yeah. And then being able to come to a group like yours or a network or a community like yours and really receive that support and that constant reminder of skills and resources that we need to display on an everyday basis, because sometimes we can get caught in the rat race and we kind of forget the goal, the main goal of what it is that we want to achieve, and not just to, again, help everyone else, excuse me, but to also further and to grow and help ourselves.
Yeah.
When we talk about the industry trends and insights, when you invest into yourself, because I know that you're investing in others, but you have to continue to invest in yourself in order for you to be able to be that resource and that pillar for them. How do you keep yourself up with the latest trends of what's going on in your industry? How do you keep yourself so sharp?
Yeah, I think I have several sources of input, I would say. Let me see. I think I would like to, you can hear from the way I talk, I'm a former strategist. I always think in three. So I think I have three areas that I would want to talk about here. One is, let's talk about just purely industry trends as an input, right? I think that's really important, particularly if we want to lead the way. The more informed we are about what's happening out there in the world, the better we can guide our teams and organizations through the changes, right? Because then you're not on the receiving end, you're really at the forefront of what's happening. And then you're also able to adapt your team and organization much quicker. So the ways of, some of the ways of how I stay up to date is through either signing up to newsletters of organizations that have recurring reports. Those could be, for example, either international organizations like the UN, or what's also really helpful is industry associations. They usually also have industry reports that come out regularly, or a newsletter. And a third group that I like signing up to is strategy consulting firms. So they usually also cover various industries. And if you sign up to their newsletters, you'll get really insightful reports and recommendations. So those are some of the regular inputs that I sign up to. Another aspect that I would highly recommend to everyone is social media. Social media really provides a lot of input. And here, LinkedIn is really helpful. So in your industry, if you just start following, identify all your main clients, competitors, and other important industry associations or industry players, just follow them on LinkedIn, because you will be up to date just by seeing what are they posting, what are the, projects they're proud of, what new developments do they have. So that's a very easy way of staying in touch with what's happening, because it's all just coming into your feed or email inbox.
I love that. And as far as the networking goes, that is so huge. I am so privileged and blessed to have been able to connect with you. And that literally happened through all of the different social media channels that we actually have. And now we're able to be a help to one another and learn from one another as well. So now that we know that there were challenges, and we know for a fact this was a male-dominated field, but you've persevered and you've made your way through it, are there any particular projects that you're really proud of? Something that you worked extremely hard on and that you want to tell everyone about?
Yeah, of course. I think it would be the one project that really stands out to me, because there was just a lot of sleepless nights involved in it. But it was also one where I had the most fun, probably. It's a project where we ramped up a project to deliver new trains in Malaysia. And we started really with a small team of just 5 people, and then overall scaled it up to over 100. And the challenge of this project was, on one hand, the timeline. It was just a really short timeline. So within a very short amount of time, we had to recruit people, train them, and skill them up to perform. And the second challenge was that we had a distributed team. Now, nowadays, we're conducting this conversation virtually, but so this is 10 years ago. 10 years ago, remote work was much more difficult. We didn't have the exact tools that we have nowadays. It was just much more painful. And we had a very distributed team across Canada and Asia. So even the time zones didn't coincide. We didn't have a single hour of working hours coming together. So it always meant one of the teams had to work late night shifts. So it truly was just very heavy workload, but also just the complexities that came with that project. But it was super interesting, and what has done is it really created a very strong bond in the team, because we all knew, hey, this is a tough challenge, but we can make it through. And I think it brought us closer together.
I love that. When we talk about teams growing together and having that female dynamic as the focal point of being a leader, do you feel like that has a huge impact on how you respond to leadership and versus management? Because we know that those are two totally different aspects. Do you feel as if there is a difference when it comes to the female-male dynamic of leadership and management?
Look, I think there's a lot of studies trying to identify what are the strengths of women and men in leadership. And I try to rather break it down into every single person has strengths in their leadership. So I think it's less of a conversation whether it's a man as a leader or as a woman in a leader, but rather what characteristics of that leader are most suitable for a particular project. So if I talk, for example, of this project, so irrespective of my gender, I think what rather made a difference was that I was very people focused, and that I did have a lot of international experience. So I was very aware of cultural differences between Asia and North America, communication differences, between Western and Eastern communication style. So me having that understanding, I think that was rather a critical factor to help establish a common ground for the overall team. Not necessarily my gender, but having that perspective. And that's why when I talk about diversity, I always say it's most of all, we need the diversity of thought. But we bring in that diversity by also bringing people together from different backgrounds, right? I think why I had this diversity that I could offer in terms of diversity and knowledge of thinking and to different cultures is because I was neither from North America nor from Asia. I was born in South America and lived in Germany. So by having lived in two cultures myself and having grown up in two cultures myself, I already knew what what differences exist between different cultures. So I think it's also about bringing in that diversity of backgrounds.
So, not really focusing on the gender itself, more so importantly, we should really just focus on the characteristics that are going to be good for that team dynamic to make sure that they can achieve that goal. And so, oftentimes, we may get sidetracked by the bias of looking at someone at their gender versus, like you said, the wonderful attributes that you brought to the table, such as your international background, the fact that you were extremely cultured, and that the way in which you approached your group of individuals that you were managing, you really took that people approach, which had a huge impact on the outcome, especially with all of the different we want to say complications that we may have had, or obstacles that we may have had as far as time zones and things of that nature to get it done. So I really love the fact that you highlighted the point that it's not really about the gender, but it's more so about the characteristic of that individual and how they really bond with that team. Excellent there. So personal versus professional development. When we talk about keeping yourself sharp, you're like, yeah, I have newsletters and things that come at me. So I have all kinds of things coming into our brain. What do you see as the biggest opportunity for growth and development within the future for yourself?
Yeah, I think the future opportunity, I think, is really in growing my impact even further, because in the work that I do with women, I really see that aha moment, when they suddenly realize, okay, either I had an obstacle or limiting belief here, and suddenly they manage to crack that, and then new opportunities open up, and they suddenly realize, yes, I can lead too, I can be a leader, and I can rely on the following strength of myself. So that's really an impact that I would like to create for more women, so that they can see the potential of how they can contribute also to developments in the industry. So that's really my focus now going forward to grow. I'm sorry, it's a little loud out here.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So I think that's absolutely amazing. And then going just a little bit further, just where do you see the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see your industry going? Do you see more women really stepping up to the plate and taking on those leadership roles, really wanting to be seen? Like you said, sometimes we just kind of want to go with the flow, and we just kind of want to fit in. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. Where do you see the industry going in 5 to 10 years, especially with focus on women?
Yeah. Look, I think particularly in STEM, we're all witnessing a very rapid development of the industry. So rapid, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, if you just look at ChatGPT and how little time it took to develop the next generation. So what we truly see is that the STEM sector is growing globally incredibly fast. I know that a few companies had announced to reduce some workforce, but it doesn't take away from the underlying trend across all of the industries. So the amount, if you just look at the projections of how many more people will be needed in the STEM sector, it's just mind-blowing. There's a huge gap to fill in order to fill all of those future positions that are being built. What I see, though, is that those positions also need to be filled with women and other people with various backgrounds as well. And why? I want to explain why. We're having some really complex challenges across the world, whether it's environmental challenges, technological challenges, societal challenges. And obviously, STEM provides a lot of solutions for those. And what we need for those is we also need the component of what would women see how we could solve those challenges, or also people from other groups. So I truly would love to encourage populations and groups that are currently underrepresented in STEM to be included in that as well. And we will need that as an industry, because otherwise we won't be able to fill all of those positions that are currently open. So I really see a major opportunity for women to be part of STEM. And like I said, it requires a couple of things for that. It requires for us to step up, for us to overcome a bit of our comfort zone, step out of our comfort zone. But it also requires for organizations to recognize some of the challenges that we have. As I mentioned earlier, a good leader is not necessarily defined by the gender, but by the characteristics. But what we need to recognize is that women currently face a couple of challenges that are not always within their control. One of the reasons why a lot of women step out of the workforce is because they move on to do care work at home, or because childcare is not affordable, and therefore the only option is to step outside of the workforce. So those are more systemic challenges that we need to find a solution to if we want to help truly to integrate that population into the workforce as well.
Hey, I think that's a very interesting point that you hit on there as well. But the inclusivity is definitely going to be key, because we do need voices from every particular, I want to say, sector in order for us to be able to get a good consensus. So that's amazing there. So again, Ms. Pamela, can you tell our audience and everyone where they can find you, get in touch with you, be a part of your wonderful STEM group? Please give them your information.
Yes, absolutely. So you will find me on LinkedIn under Pamela Kellert. And you're also most welcome to join our Facebook group called Women Leading in STEM. Once you join the Facebook group, Jay, you're already part of it, you'll be able to join free webinars, live conversations, discussions, and just really find a community that's there to support you. And if you have any other questions, that's where you can reach me or reach out on LinkedIn.
I totally agree. I am giving you my stamp of approval. This group is amazing. And again, Ms. Pamela, thank you for being accessible. One of those leaders that we can reach out to and really get some understanding and comforting from, and also advice of how to continue to move upward in our careers. So thank you again so much. And thank you for coming on to Expert Speaks. Hopefully this won't be the last time that we see you. But again, it was an absolute pleasure to learn from you. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. It has been an absolute pleasure, Ms. Pamela. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure has been mine. Thanks so much.
Alrighty. Goodbye, everyone.